videos, and that evolution from young wildlife enthusiasts that had big, dreams of being like Steve Irwin-esque and having a show where I could promote these things that are so important to me that I'm passionate about, to becoming a veterinarian where I get to work with conservationists and other vets.
Ashley DeVorkin, Fox News.
Now, from the historical audio archives of Fox News Talk.
Baltimore Orioles shortstop Cal Ripken Jr., the Iron Man, broke the record for most consecutive games played, 2,131. The record had been held for 56 years before that by Lou Gehrig.
Well, I see myself as someone that was very lucky and had a good career, and I think that I'm pretty good. I mean, I don't put myself all the way down and not think that I've had a pretty significant career. I've enjoyed being in the presence of all the great players and this collection of players. I sat and talked to Henry Aaron a long time and really enjoyed talking to Kirk Gibson and Pete Rose. I just enjoy being in the environment. Maybe when I get older and you start to look back, you may have a historical view of your career. But right now, I just see myself as a guy that was lucky enough to play baseball for a long time.
Stay tuned to hear more history as it unfolds before your ears. It's the audio archives of Fox News Talk. Showdown in Georgia for Senate control.
Georgia will determine the balance of power in a heated runoff election.
The outcome of that Senate race is going to set the stage and the tone.
As the future of our country hangs in the balance, Fox News is standing up for what's right.
Liberal elites are going all in Georgia.
Democrats aren't hiding what they plan to do. They plan to fundamentally change this country.
The dream of a blue wave, it ends in Georgia.
Stay with Fox News Channel for coverage of the Senate Showdown. The Voices America trusts.
It's Brian Kilmeade.
Santa and his horse-drawn sleigh was stopped on the road by police because Santa's sleigh didn't have proper headlights. I mean, Rudolph, you had one job. One job, Rudolph. This is a serious issue. It is. Santa should have proper headlights. This is exactly how Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
That was James Corden. Pretty funny. Very interesting. Hey, let's go out to Carl in Iowa. Hey, Carl. Oh, we're not there? All right, so we only got a minute left. That's my bad. Lindsey Graham is playing a vital role. I just love having him on. He's involved in almost every major story, Republican, Democrat, election story, directly, indirectly. And he also personally handing over the money that people gave him to make sure he beat Jamie Harrison. He's turning it over to help win those Republican races in Georgia. And he's one of these guys, he actually lives his salary. He has a modest house in beautiful South Carolina because he's only supposed to be making a certain amount of money. Why does Joe Biden have a compound? Maybe his dad left the money, but that would have to change the story he tells in every stump speech. A blue-collar dad who lost his job and had to move to Delaware from Pennsylvania, where they had lived a life in which they were of hand-me-downs and make goods. So I don't really think we ever got that answer to that story, or why all these people end up so rich. When we come back, we're going to take a little bit of a left turn, but one that's going to be a welcome one. John Tesh's best-selling book is called Relentless, Unleashing a Life of Purpose, Grit, and Faith. This guy was saddled with cancer. He battled all the way back and now is telling his story. He's a great musician, unbelievable anchor, cut his teeth in New York on WCBS, called the Olympics, great sports guy too. John Tesh will join us later next.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network, Getting Schooled with Abby Hornacek.
Fox News Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel. Can you just talk to me about the basics of a filibuster?
Two different versions. There's giving a long speech on the Senate floor to make the point that there is a severe protest about something going on in the Senate.
Это должно выглядеть обнадеживающе. Чем больше коррупции, тем быстрее.
За нами закон. За нами закон, права и свободы человека и гражданина. Если мы, политики, будем сдаваться, то мы бросим граждан.
When you have a lot of scientists telling you to socially distance, to wear a mask in crowded spaces, to not spend too much time indoors with your 80-year-old nan, That's not the same thing as somebody making stuff up on the spot. But maybe that's... Man, that's not the same thing as somebody making stuff up on the spot. But maybe that's how it's coming across. I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Come talk to me here on Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.
Your trusted 24-hour resource for breaking news and non-stop conversation.
The impact on the hospitality, the event sector.
Спортсмены еще 2 года не смогут выступать под национальными флагами.
Константин Котов вышел на свободу. В феврале этого года активиста приговорили к 4 годам колонии за неоднократное нарушение закона о митингах. Последний раз 10 августа. Согласно версии следствия, Котов держал в руках плакат и скандировал лозунги. Но на видео, которое засняло Радио Свобода, видно, что активист даже не успел принять участие в акции, как его задержали.
Судя по всему, задерживают людей с какими-то плакатами, свернутыми, развернутыми.
Адвокатам удалось оспорить приговор и сократить срок заключения до 1,5 лет. Теперь, когда Котов на свободе, решение Мосгорсуда будут оспаривать в Европейском суде по правам человека. Прокуратура запросила 3 года колонии для муниципального депутата Юлии Галяминой. Ее судят по той же, что и Котова, статье, в народе прозванной Дадинской, по имени первого осужденного активиста Ильдара Дадина. Уголовное дело против Галяминой возбудили в конце июля за призывы к участию в незаконном массовом мероприятии. Судят в России не только за митинги, но и за фотографии, особенно если на них попадает сотрудник Федеральной службы безопасности. Супругам из Калининграда Антонине Зиминой и Константину Антонцу грозит до 14 лет колонии. И уголовное дело о госизмене засекречено, но СМИ узнали, что пару обвиняют в раскрытии личности оперативника из калининградского ФСБ. Он был у них на свадьбе, попал в объектив камеры, после чего, по версии следствия, супруги переслали фотографии латвийской разведки. Новогодний локдаун. Несколько стран Европы вводят жесткие ограничения на предстоящие праздники. Все из-за пандемии коронавируса. Самые строгие меры предприняли в Германии. Там с 16 декабря по 10 января закрывается все, кроме продуктовых магазинов, аптек, банков, отделений почты, медучреждений и елочных базаров. Школьники отправлены на каникулы или на дистанционное обучение. Уже в 3-й раз карантин ввела и Австрия. Там локдаун продлится до 18 января. Аналогичные меры предприняли в Польше. Турция же и вовсе ввела комендантский час для местных жителей. Им будет запрещено выходить из дома без острой необходимости в течение нескольких дней. С 9 часов вечера 31 декабря и до 5 часов утра 4 января. Коллегия выборщиков США подтвердила победу Джо Байдена на президентских выборах. В понедельник выборщики проголосовали строго по результатам, утвержденным в избирательных комиссиях штатов. Таким образом, Дональд Трамп получил 232 голоса, Байден – 306. Владимир Путин поздравил коллегу с победой. К слову, оба президента США и России отказались делать прививку от коронавируса раньше своих сограждан, которые находятся в группе риска, хотя массовая вакцинация началась в обеих странах. До конца 2022 года российские спортсмены не смогут выступать под национальным флагом. Такое решение принял спортивный арбитражный суд в Лозанне по делу о допинге. Суд также обязал российское антидопинговое агентство выплатить ВАДА больше $1 миллиона в качестве компенсации за расходы на расследование. В ближайшие 2 года российские спортсмены смогут участвовать в международных соревнованиях лишь под нейтральным флагом и при выполнении ряда условий.
Решение спортивного арбитража мы обсудим со спортивным юристом Артемом Пацевым. Артем, здравствуйте.
Добрый вечер.
Можно ли назвать решение спортивного арбитража?
На какой? Это как-то дискредитирует расследование, на ваш взгляд?
All-American cricket.
For a Gibraltarian of his generation.
My family stems from my grandfather, who was a regimental sergeant major who came to Gibraltar, and he married a Spanish girl. They left, and years later my mother came home to visit some of our family, and my dad met her. My dad was of Spanish origins, and he met my mother here, and they got married, and then there was me.
And you're equally at home in both Spanish and English?
Well, I usually tell both my English and my Spanish friends, look, I can sing whatever English Scottish song you want me to sing, or flamenco, both.
The Rock of Gibraltar is at the southern tip of Spain, in a vital strategic position guarding the entrance to the Mediterranean. It's been British since the 1700s, and its naval base used to create a lot of jobs for the Spanish town of La Línea, which is only a few hundred meters away across the border.
La Línea was born as a consequence of Gibraltar's need for labor. In fact, the other towns used to nickname the people of La Línea Los Especiales, special, because they had money coming in until the border closed.
In the 1950s and 60s, when Spain was still poor, La Línea became famous for its fiestas.
I remember the main street in La Línea every evening, chock-a-block with people walking up and down, and if you knew how many couples met there, you know, that's when we used to marry lots of Spanish girls, all the fiestas, the bullfights. Oh, I mean, it was great. There were many Gibraltarians who lived there. Remember, Gibraltar always had a very big house in London. Many people used to move across the border because there was plenty of accommodation there, very cheap.
But at the time, Spain was still ruled by the fascist dictator General Franco. Franco pressed Madrid's claim to Gibraltar at the United Nations. But in 1967, Gibraltarians held a referendum in which they voted overwhelmingly to remain British citizens, although with their own institutions. Spain responded by introducing more and more restrictions at the border, eventually closing it in 1969.
That night, many people went down to the border with portraits of the Queen and everybody singing God Save the Queen and shouting insults to the Spanish side. You're criminals, fascists, because we knew we were being shut up.
So what happened to those Gibraltarians who had homes in Spain?
The majority all came back to Gibraltar. Some of them forfeited their houses. We had transit centres to put these people in. Barracks, which were empty at the time, were taken over by these people until eventually they were found government housing.
But what were conditions like? Because the Spanish even cut all the phone lines initially.
Yes, you know, they were bloody-minded. Let's put it that way. They were trying to strangulate Gibraltar's economy. But thank God we had Morocco next door who filled in all the gaps which were left vacant by the Spanish. We had fresh fruit and vegetables and meat and fish and things like that from Morocco. Everybody mucked in. We had the Housewives Association who went and did all the jobs in the hospitals, the old people's homes and things like that, till eventually proper people were recruited to take these jobs on. And they did it without getting a penny.
For 13 years, the only way from Gibraltar to Spain was to take a ferry to Morocco, then another one from there back to Spain. In practice, that meant families were separated, although they could gather at the border fence to see each other.
Many families would arrange to meet at a certain time on a certain day. You know, they would go there and say, look, I'll see you on Saturday at such a time, you know, and they would be there waiting on the other side. They would say, we've got a new baby born. They would raise him up so they would see him on the other side. They would look at each other with binoculars. In fact, I had a bloke working with me who had properties in Spain, and he left his wife and a few of his children there, and he came to Gibraltar with a few of his other children, and he used to go nearly every day on his bicycle to the border with his binoculars and see his wife and kids, and they would shout at each other, and that was it.
Must have been pretty hard for families like that.
Well, imagine if you went there and you said, look, I have to tell you that your dad died yesterday. Some people in desperation, they would just go dive in and swim across the La Línea, and in some cases they were picked up. But they said, look, okay, arrest me, but before you put me in jail, take me to the hospital. I want to see my mother before she dies.
And one Spaniard found an imaginative way to get across the 100-metre stretch of water and see his relatives. A regular underwater fishing trip.
When I used to work for the military, we had these Land Rovers with radars on top along the border, and one of them says, look, we are seeing this chap who frequently dives in La Línea and swims over to Gibraltar in his wetsuit, saying, oh, I'm going underwater fishing. I said, I know who he is, don't touch him. This chap is the son of a couple who's living in Gibraltar. This couple used to live where I lived, and I knew there's no danger, nothing serious, and they let him come and go. And then meet with his parents, and other guys that he was going underwater fishing or whatever.
Españoles, Franco, amo.
After the dictator Franco died in 1975, democracy returned to Spain, and in 1982, the government opened its
work.
And can you remember the first time you just walked across to Spain again?
I remember I went across with all my kids. They said, let's go into Spain. One of my cousins was a Spanish policeman at the border. I said, hey, how are you? You don't need a passport to come in here, come across,
But although Spain had to open the border in 1982, it has not withdrawn its claim to Gibraltar, and the dispute with London has continued. In fact, Tito says the long closure of the fence was actually counterproductive for the Spanish because it brought Gibraltarians together and made them more determined to remain British.
Gibraltar became, should I say, a people, an identity. We are Gibraltarians. The rift also caused our children to start losing the use of Spanish. Most of the young people in Gibraltar hardly speak any Spanish, which is a shame. No more marriages between us.
At whatever level, I mean, one of the things that the advice that I give people who ask, and the advice that works for me, things like Admiral McRaven, who led the Navy SEALs for so many years, he wrote a great book that was originally a commencement speech, which was Make Your Bed. And the reason that's so important is that you want to know what the Navy SEALs do to be successful. You want to know what they do to actually make it to becoming a Navy SEAL, right? And the whole thing that he was talking about is you have to start your day with a win. And I'm also the fan of Charles Duhigg, who's a researcher, great writer, who wrote the book The Power of Habit. And so he says making your bed every morning. It sounds so simple, right? But it is actually data-driven, correlated with better productivity and a greater sense of well-being. And he calls it a keystone habit. So my keystone habit, I don't make my bed. I'm terrible at it. Connie will redo it, my wife. But my keystone habit is I get in the gym. I have a boxing timer. I don't box, but I have a boxing timer set for 45 minutes every morning, and it dings I work out for a minute 30, and then it dings, and I get the rest for 45 seconds. And that is my win. It doesn't matter what I do. I can do push-ups, sit-ups. I can do fast walking or yeah. But that's my win in the morning. And if you don't have that, you end up doom scrolling with all of the stuff that's going on, especially right now, right? I mean, I don't even know how you could possibly order your day. I would love to know what you do in the morning to get started.
Well, I'm up at 2:30. What I think I do, and I do it for America, I shower, and then it's off the races. My busiest time is from 3 a.m. until 5:40 when I go downstairs and and go to the studio. So that's my busiest time of the day. So I prepare for both these shows back to back. So I have no real creative decisions to make until 12:01.
Right.
So,
right.
That's why I'm the luckiest person you're listening to, because I was able to keep my job and do my job and talk about the things that everybody else is talking about.
Well, I mean, and preparation is such a big. I watch you, and I watch all the different things you do, whether it's doing Fox and Friends or doing The Five, or promoting a book. So when I was an announcer for CBS, at any given moment, I on my shoulder as a co-announcer was Eric Heiden or Greg LeMond, Scott Hamilton, Tim Daggett, Billy Kidd, Jimmy Connors, Tracy Austin. I worked with all those guys, and so there was a commonality in what they did, was that they were always over-prepared. I mean, it was just whatever you're preparing for, right? People are like, oh, man, how can I become an expert? You just have to read. You read, and when you come out on the other side of that, you really can't do anything. Or practice, right? It's like that 10,000 hour rule. When nobody would take me seriously as a musician, I just said, well, I'm just gonna practice for 4 hours a day, and finally you believe in yourself because you're prepared.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that was your second career. Your first career was as a broadcaster. So I want you to hear something. This is going on every day in L.A. And I was out in Santa Monica to do the Jim Gray special, so I was in and out in about 12 hours. And I said, let me get breakfast before my shoot. I could not get breakfast. I drove around for 40 minutes. I finally found a hotel that's set up on a sidewalk. They said they got closed a couple of times because cops will walk by. So I can't believe what you guys are living through. It's very similar to New York City, but Long Island is better. So I want you to hear these restaurateurs. I also worked in 4 different restaurants. My dad owned a bar. I know when he was shut down because a guy drunk got in an accident for having phony ID and underage, everybody be out of work. And there's no play with paycheck to paycheck people. So listen to this frustration in Los Angeles. This guy's name is Anton Van Patten as health inspectors walk in to shut him down.
I followed the rules. I continue to follow the rules, and you guys still, time after time, are giving me citations, telling me I have to close my business.
You're not
What about my employees?
You're not following the rules.
I am following the rules. My tables are inside. Just because the health department has a whole process to go through that takes however long that takes, I have to close my business for that time? Are you going to pay my rent?
There's no logic to what these guys are doing, with your governors doing what our governors doing. They're getting...
Right now, as people are putting up GoFundMe pages to help these people because the government can't get it together to figure out how to get money to these guys. I just say keep fighting. Keep fighting. Don't, and especially I'm a conservative, and we can't sit back and say, oh, I'm just going to let this happen to me. You can't do it. You can't do it. And we have a friend, Jack Hibbs, who has a church out here with 30,000 people in it. And he just said, sorry, you can drag me out of here, but I'm going to have church services every Sunday. People are wearing masks, but he just said, you can't do it. And you got to stand up. You got to stand up and say, I'm just going to quote the Constitution to you, and that's going to be the way I'm going to fight back.
Absolutely. I also thought, too, about the entertainment industry. And even if you have a lot of money, you have a certain budget. So you have a certain lifestyle. Your lifestyle is getting paid. This pandemic hits thanks to China. Let's emphasize that. And all of a sudden, no one's shooting commercials. They're not shooting movies. They're not really auditioning. So Tom Cruise gets Mission Impossible rolling. I just want you to hear a little of it. He snapped when he saw 2 of his guys high five.
We are the gold standard. You're back there in Hollywood making movies right now because of us, because they believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every studio at night, insurance companies, producers, and they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see it again.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I have 2 actors in my family, Connie and Connie Selleck and Gib Gerard. And Gib is actually on a movie set right now. When I heard the audio, I didn't see anything, but I heard the audio of Tom Cruise. I immediately said, right on, Tom, right on, man, because he was right. It's on him, and a lot of what's going to happen in Hollywood overall is on him. So I was fine with him getting mad.
I understand it, too. And I don't know what you heard. You probably have met him. I have not, but I hear great things about him. He's a really good person.
I've interviewed him a couple of times for Entertainment Tonight. He's a leader. And you want to talk about a guy who visualizes and just steps out. He's the tough guy. One of my other favorites is our 2 Navy SEALs, David Goggins and Jocko Willink. I follow those guys on YouTube and listen to them all the time. It's time for tough guys to rise up, I think.
I think you have to, and I resent the fact that the people in charge are not worthy to be in charge. I'll follow McCraven. He earned his way up. I'm stuck with Cuomo. You're stuck with Gavin Newsom, who has the audacity, and it's not the first time, to go to the most expensive restaurant in the country while he tells us we can't go to work, we can't go to school, and we can't go to restaurants. So while he goes to a restaurant to celebrate a party with the health inspectors that are telling everyone we can't do all these things, they are not worthy of being our leaders. John, final thought on that?
Yeah, it cost me a television set because when I saw that, I ripped it off the wall.
I don't blame you. What did you going through? I always thought you were a well-adjusted person anyway, obviously multi-talented, never got caught up on the anchor of Entertainment Tonight, and I'm calling the Olympics. But when you had that experience of fighting for your life, has it changed you substantially?
Yeah. You know what it did? It was, there are many things that happened to me, but real quickly, it became a love story because my wife, Connie Selica, we've been married for 28 years, famous actress, a beautiful woman, could have had anybody in the world, and she picked me. And she just dropped everything. And she took care of me, and she went to every doctor's appointment, and she challenged every treatment, and she found scriptures for us to help me get healed, and it ended up going from being in love with somebody to agape love, and there are many marriages that break up when there's cancer, a cancer diagnosis, especially one as deeply frightening as mine. But I just learned how much my wife loved me and how important my relationship was.
It's called Relentless, Unleashing a Life of Purpose, Grit, and Faith. It's going to help everybody who's listening right now. This will help you. John Tesh, thanks so much for calling. And I hope to see you in the new year when we're allowed to travel and have a good time again.
You need to know, and we do it very powerfully. Connie and I are praying for you because, man, you're a warrior, and we love you.
All right, thanks so much. I'm honored. And I just know she had a big birthday. I'm not going to say the number. And I know you had a big celebration.
You did a video for her. It was amazing. Thanks, man. I'll let you go.
That's the least I can do. John Tesh, thank you so much. The multi-talented, faceted, best-selling author, sports anchor, entertainment anchor, and musician. Back in a moment.
Educating, entertaining, enlightening. You're with Brian Kilmeade.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. In these ever-changing times, you can rely on Fox News for hourly updates for the very latest news and information on your time. Listen and download now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
I'm Ashley DeVorkin with the Fox Movie Profile and a look at a couple of new movies in select theaters and premium video on demand. Starting with the cinematic romance Wild Mountain Thyme. Here's Fandango's Eric Davis.
If you're in the mood for an unapologetic romantic film, this is your pick for the weekend. Emily Blunt, Jamie Dornan, written and directed by John Patrick Shanley, who also brought us classic romances like Moonstruck, which he wrote.
There's also a new thriller with Wander Darkly.
It stars Sienna Miller and Diego Luna, and they play a couple who are kind of on the outs, trying to figure out should they stay together, should they not, and they get into a horrible accident.
And for those looking for rental recommendations, Fandango now has a curated list of holiday movie titles, which may even spark a familiar holiday time debate.
He also went to all the fans and asked them, who is your favorite holiday movie couple? John and Holly McClain from Die Hard, believe it or not, which is great. I think Die Hard is totally a Christmas movie.
Ashley DeVorkin, Fox News.
Now, from the historical audio archives of Fox News Talk.
On March 5th, 1946, Sir Winston Churchill gave his famous Iron Curtain speech at Westminster College in Missouri. The speech was deemed by many to mark the onset of the Cold War.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. Behind that line lie all the capitals of the ancient states of Central and Eastern Europe. All these famous cities and the populations around them lie in what I must call the Soviet sphere. And all are subject in one form or another, not only to Soviet influence, but to a very high and in some cases increasing measure of control from Moscow. This is certainly not the liberated Europe we fought to build up.
Stay tuned to hear more history as it unfolds before your ears. It's the audio archives of Fox News Talk.
Coronavirus crisis.
Coronavirus won't stop Santa Claus this year, at least in one city. Bass Pro Shops in Las Vegas making sure kids can still get a photo with the big guy in red.
Right here.
They've set up a plexiglass wall so there's separation and use walkie-talkies to communicate.
On that snake game where you try to steal the snake's skull.
now.
Some parents like it because it takes the anxiety away of trying to get their kid to sit on a stranger's lap.
Typically, our kids are always the ones screaming, not wanting to sit on his lap, and so having the box in front of them that they can sit on definitely put them at ease.
Santa himself says it's not quite like Christmas past, but it's a way to keep safe while keeping up with holiday traditions.
Nevada was closed for quite some time, and it's been very difficult for people. So this opportunity to get out and to be seen and be around is a wonderful thing, and I look at it as an opportunity. Merry Christmas.
Rich Dennison, Fox News.
Showdown in Georgia for Senate control.
Georgia will determine the balance of power in a heated runoff election.
The outcome of that Senate race is going to set the stage and the tone.
As the future of our country hangs in the balance, Fox News is standing up for what's right.
Liberal elites are going all in Georgia.
Democrats aren't hiding what they plan to do. They plan to fundamentally change this country.
The dream of a blue wave, it ends in Georgia.
Stay with Fox News Channel for coverage of the Senate Showdown. The Voices America trusts.
Show like no other. It's Brian Kilmeade.
Is it true that you have never owned a computer or a cell phone?
Yeah, somebody had to come and set this up because I don't have a cell phone or a computer.
Why don't you have one? Are you morally, philosophically, emotionally opposed?
No, I just got to it too late. You know, I think I'm right at a certain age where it just passed me by. I never got involved in it because it would be strange to have, any 10-year-old be much better at it than I am.
So weird. That's Christopher Walken?
Yeah, so he was on The Late Show, and he was talking about how he never interviewed Christopher Walken, so he obviously was done virtually. And he said that he needed people to come in and set up. He doesn't even have a computer. He's never sent an email out. He's never sent a text out. And when they use cell phones, he says he has to borrow somebody's cell phone and have them dial. He doesn't even know how to use a cell phone.
So is his thought problem, if I can't be great at it, or if someone thinks rather than be bad at something, I'd rather just not do it?
He just said basically it's just passed him by. He's just an older person. I mean, that's just like above and beyond. Like, I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to learn.
I heard not being good at it, but all right.
He said they use cell phones to keep track of him. Like, since they can't keep track of him on the set, they have others keep track of where he is on the set.
So, by the way, we have some good news. The president is telling John Roberts that he's adamant on delivering relief to workers, families, and small businesses before the holidays. Conversation with Capitol Hill leaders are going well, and they're optimistic to have a deal between 24 and 48 hours. And that's going to be $600 to $700 stimulus checks, $300 per week in extra jobless benefits, and PPP funding. Good news.
This is Fox News Talk.
Headline По-русски говоря.
Вы не поверите, но мне нравится ездить в общественном транспорте. Да, там приходится балансировать на одной ноге, цепляясь за поручень и ощущая в прямом смысле слова локоть соседа. Но все это компенсируется сюжетами, которые можно черпать из невольно подслушанных речей пассажиров.
Слово за слово.
Вчера, например, рядом оказались мама с сыном-школьником лет 10. Приедем, пообедаем и сразу садись за уроки, а компьютер уже потом. Прозвучал родительский наказ. В ответ последовало: что зачем, это мое личное дело. Мама продолжала: но ведь это неразумно. Заиграешься в свою стрелялку-проделку, придется до ночи за учебниками страдать. А если наоборот, то будет тебе после работы заслуженный отдых. Мальчик настаивал: когда мне играть, это мое решение, сугубо личностное.
О чем это?
Личным мы называем все то, что либо осуществляется непосредственно определенным человеком, лицом, либо непосредственно его касается. Так мы говорим о чьем-то личном присутствии, личном счастье, личном имуществе, личной ответственности. А личностным является то, что характерно для личности человека как носителя каких-то определенных свойств и обладателя неких черт характера. Личностное начало, личностный мир, личностные качества и характеристики, личностное развитие, личностные и кризис, и личностная зрелость. Так что с выбором прилагательного мальчик промахнулся.
Ошибочка вышла.
Не успела я об этом подумать, как мама сама обратила внимание сына на допущенную ошибочку и предложила ему компромисс. Хочет сначала поиграть, пусть сам отмерит потехи час, после которого начнется отведенное делу время. Успех такого педагогического подхода был двойным. И со злоупотреблением разобрались, и приблизились к воспитанию личной ответственности. Замечательному, согласитесь, личностному качеству. Я Ольга Северская. Личность.
По-русски говоря...
Видео-радио – это уже реальность. «Эхо Москвы» теперь доступно в видеоформате в Яндекс.Эфир. 12+.
Радио «Эхо Москвы».
В Москве, в студии Александр Климов. Новости. В коронавирусной больнице в Астрахани произошел взрыв в хранилище с кислородными баллонами. Пострадал сотрудник больницы, он госпитализирован. Как сообщил ТАСС, министр здравоохранения региона Алексей Спирин, по предварительной версии рабочий менял кислородный баллон в промасленных перчатках, которые воспламенились при попадании на них кислородной струи. По данным регионального управления МИНЧС, подача кислорода в реанимацию не останавливалась, пострадавших среди пациентов нет. Эвакуация из здания больницы не проводилась. По сведениям Интерфакса, всего в больнице лечится 150 пациентов с коронавирусом, 11 из них подключены к аппаратам ИВЛ. Пассажиры самолета, экстренно севшего в Сургуте, вылетели в Уфу резервным бортом. У самолета авиакомпании «Ютейр» сразу после вылета из Игарки в Уфу сработал датчик неисправности наддува. Командир экипажа сначала принял решение вернуться в аэропорт вылета, но потом решил садиться в Сургуте. Посадка прошла в штатном режиме. На борту находился 121 человек, в том числе 116 пассажиров. Премьер-министр Израиля Беньямин Нетаньяху первым в стране вакцинировался от коронавируса. При этом использовался препарат американской компании Pfizer. Прямую трансляцию процедуры вела государственная телерадиокомпания «Кан». В канцелярии премьера объяснили, что Нетаньяху своим личным примером хотел побудить население к вакцинации. Вслед за Нетаньяху вакцинировался министр здравоохранения Юлий Эдельштейн. Ассоциация футбола Узбекистана потребовала от российского тренера Сергея Юрана привести доказательства своим словам о возрасте игрока московского «Спартака» Астона Урунова. В противном случае от Юрана ждут публичных извинений. Как передает ТАСС, главный тренер СКА Хабаровский Юран, ссылаясь на свои источники в Узбекистане, заявил в эфире телеканала «Матч Премьер», что Урунов старше своего официального возраста. 19 декабря узбекскому игроку исполнилось 20 лет. Узбекская сторона также призывает РФС разобрать инцидент на комитете по этике и дать оценку высказываниям Юрана. Во время открытия на Софийской площади в Киеве главной елки Украины загорелась гирлянда. Как передает ТАСС, огонь удалось оперативно погасить, пострадавших не было. Церемония, участие в которой приняли мэр столицы Виталий Кличко и сотни зрителей, транслировалась в прямом эфире, организованном городской администрацией. По информации ряда украинских СМИ, огонь потушили за минуту порошковым огнетушителем, взятым в ближайшем киоске. В Москве этой ночью -2, -4, завтра днем от 1 до 3 градусов ниже нуля, местами небольшой снег. Александр Климов, служба информации «Эхо Москвы».
Илона Маска SpaceX запустила секретный аппарат в интересах Национального управления военно-космической разведки США. Ракета Falcon 9 вывела на орбиту разведывательный спутник весом почти в 7 тонн. Через 8 минут после взлета многоразовая ступень ракеты успешно вернулась на Землю. Она совершила свой 5-й по счету полет. Государственный телеканал «Грозный» сообщил о задержании 2 жителей Чечни. Они возвращались из Дагестана, где воспользовались услугами колдуньи. Рассказывает редактор сайта «Кавказ Реалии» Иван Мартыненко.
С ее помощью, по данным авторов сюжета, один из задержанных хотел вернуть жену. 2 молодых людей со странным багажом остановили при въезде в республику из Дагестана, говорится в описании сюжета в инстаграме телеканала «Грозный». С собой у них был железный замок, заговоренная вода и много других подозрительных предметов.
Go anywhere over the Christmas period or really after the Christmas period or
For how long, nobody knows how long, but once you're in tier 4, that's it. You're staying home, you are isolating if you're home alone, and you are cancelling Christmas. Going to have on us. Here to talk to me about that now is psychologist Emma Kenny. Hi, Emma.
Hello, lovely. How are you?
I am okay, my darling. I am going to be honest, I had a bit of a cry this afternoon at tier 4 because, I mean, irony of ironies, as tier 4 was being announced, the massive Christmas shop that I had done for my 3 families who are coming together at Christmas appeared at the doorstep, and I thought, oh my God, all of this is now it's just gone. It's all just disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, my feed at the moment is just my Twitter feed, because obviously I do a lot of mental health support. My Twitter feed is full of people just feeling like they just can't make it through, because I think that people have just been waiting for this, I suppose, a breath, just to take a step back and to breathe. So I think what you're feeling is completely natural, and it's felt such an unreasonable to some degree year. And I think that when it comes down to Boris Johnson, I have to say he's the leader who's saying it, but it's his advisors that I think are the ones telling him. So I actually, bizarrely, in spite of the way that I feel about what's happened, I actually do have sympathy with him, because I do believe that he's trusting what he's being told, right? So I don't want to come down horribly on him for that. But I kind of jokingly asked a while ago, could you please provide the science and evidence as to tiers and lockdown working? And it hasn't really come out. So I think that what we're also seeing is people feeling really scared because they're on their own. And their compassionate grounds aren't being met, and mental health we know is in massive decline, and this signified something that I think was symbolic for many of us. So I agree with you. I think that moment of feeling really sad and lonely and maybe scared, they're all the most human and natural feelings to have right now.
I think what you say there about feeling sad sad and scared is really interesting, because I have a WhatsApp group with my kind of very smart, very thoughtful girlfriends who are educated, intelligent people.
Yes.
And we also do that really scared us. That briefing really scared us.
Yeah.
What is going on psychologically in those briefings that is having such an impact on us?
I think you have to all remember that there's a behaviour insights group, and they're full of psychologists and people who know how to nudge you in certain directions. And it would be like me and you, we'd be nudging people in maybe a different direction, which is where we want to be warm and communicative and care for each other, because that's really important. It's really important for humans to be around each other. I also think that when you come down to the idea of what we've actually learned about our society this year, and one of the things I listened to you say before was, is it that people haven't behaved, blah, 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 and I completely understand that, but arguably, I think that people have behaved beyond comprehension. I've never seen people comply in a way, and it surprised me. I myself have complied, I think that the reality is that for most of us, we're surprised that in spite of the fact that we are complying, it just seems to get stricter and stricter. And what we should be looking at, and we definitely should be looking at, is hospital admissions and deaths. And that isn't something that should be alarming us at the moment, because the ONS data shows us what we need to see. Okay, if I can't be with the people that I love for Christmas, how am I going to manage that better? Because let me tell you, we do know that loneliness definitely impacts on the physical well-being. So we know lonely people have a lower immunity. We do know that loneliness makes you feel very unwell mentally. So we already have this evidence. And for me, it feels like there's a big juxtaposition between what humans need and what humans are getting. And it's funny, actually, Harriet, I actually tweeted this morning, because you know me, I'm very honest about my mental health. I don't want to not share it. If I don't talk about my mental health, Harriet, what am I doing? Why do I expect people to come and talk about theirs? And I actually said, at this moment in time, if you could give me a disclaimer to say I won't get any treatment, I'd sign it just to have my life, because my boys are struggling. I'm watching my children in pain. And it was actually just to reach out, oh my goodness, the abuse. And yet, what I'm trying to say is, if we can't meet each other mental health wise and say, it's okay to feel scared, it's okay to struggle, it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel lonely, we're actually censoring emotion. And I mean, I've been around a long time, and I know that mental health is always something that gets a backseat. I get it. There's always been mental health in the backseat. But now, it feels like saying, I don't like this. You are somehow complicit in wanting to harm people. I think that what amazes me about your channel, if I'm honest, is that you've allowed that conversation of confusion and worry and concern and I don't know why this is happening and I want to be shown evidence. You've at least allowed that voice, and I think that you'll go down in history, your station, for creating that opportunity to just have an open discussion. Nobody wants anyone to die, but I also don't want anybody to die because of neglect and mental health. And I know that you'll feel exactly the same.
Well, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, Ray? We've had a couple of people on tonight who've said, I don't understand. I don't understand this. And you put it really beautifully there, which is like, we've all complied and it doesn't seem to be doing anything.
No, in fact, the BMJ and some of the biggest studies in the world, in fact, so a JAMA study has said that even when you live with people, 77,000 people were studied going out to work, coming back, and even then when somebody had symptoms in the household, only 18% caught it. And I think that whilst I am definitely not a doctor, and I know that, and people keep telling me that, and I don't need to be told, I get it, there are miles more qualified people than me, but what I do know, and what I am an expert in, I'm an expert in what makes people happy and close proximal relationships, and also risk. Listen, we've never lived without risk. The idea that we can live without risk is, one, very damaging, secondly, impossible, and most importantly means, for example, that we start sanitizing childhood. I've never seen the levels of regression before, Harriet. And whilst I know we're talking about Christmas, this is a wider issue, and you brought it up and put it perfectly. You kind of, on an ironic and sarcastic level, when I don't know when this is going to end, tier 4, and when it's going to be tier 5, or it's going to be tier 9. But actually, you know what? It's really important that we remember that this Christmas, not only are people not spending time with their families, and that's important, but let me say, the guidance does say for compassionate grounds, your mental health is important, so look that up. Compassionate grounds count, so if you're severely unhappy and worried about your mental health and wellness, you can make choices around that, and I want people to be aware of it. But I think the bigger picture is this. What are we actually doing now when we think about childhood? Because childhood is a sense of wonder, isn't it? And magic and Christmas is all of that. And yet for some reason we're now making children feel afraid of loving and of living and of playing and of touching. And for me, I'm always going to understand the medics. I appreciate that they work really hard and the NHS does an amazing job. I do. But I'm sorry, I also know that happy humans are becoming less and less visible in our society. So when you said then, what do they discuss at those briefings? I don't know, because it can't be what's good for mental health. And just to add, this year, 3 million people within households, 3 million adults have not had any financial support the whole year. UNICEF are giving out food parcels to children. So I agree with you on that. I'm unclear, I'm confused. I don't know why, but what I do know is there is evident damage at this moment in time that is causing a catastrophic impact on children and young people and mental health in general. And whilst people can come on and attack me as they do, or do exposés on me because I say that I want evidence, I'm going to stand by every human being who listens to your channel and says, I'm struggling, because it's okay, and I am, and you are. And the more we talk about that, the more maybe we get listened to. And I can't believe I actually started this by saying I have empathy with Boris Johnson, but I do, because I believe that he's trusted sources. You know, we all trust our sources,
strange
right?
times, Emma. Who knows what can happen?
I agree, Harriet. Who knew when we were doing our podcast together a year ago that we would be in this situation now?
Oh God, I miss those days. I miss those days.
Do too.
I want to know for people who are feeling a bit.
Yes.
I mean, so there is the extreme right, and I think Boris Johnson. I misheard, but I think he did mention in the briefings that he's very aware of mental health.
Yes.
Who knows how true, but for the extreme people who really feel like they cannot cope by themselves, absolutely, you need to find somebody, you need to be with somebody.
Yes.
But for those of us who are like, oh, okay, this is happening now, I've got to find a way to get on with it.
Yeah.
I feel, and I don't know how many other people feel like this, but I feel like it might be a few. I feel like my ability to be kind of relatively jolly and just keep carrying on.
Yeah, I'm the same.
It's pretty much at the end of its tether.
So I cancelled Christmas this year. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
You were in advance?
We've been in Tier 3 for 396 years.
Oh my God.
So, I don't remember life before Tier 3. And whilst I make fun of it, what that means is that my sister, for example, I can't see her because she has children who are married and they've got their own bubble. And, that means that my uncle can't come from where he lives because he's in a different tier. So I usually have 20 for Christmas dinner, and there's 4 of us. So actually, I've just decided we're not doing it. And you know what? It's okay. So what I want to say to people is, first of all, economically and financially, if you're struggling because you might be excluded and you might have had no financial help from Rishi, which I don't know a lot of people are aware of that, it's massive, people have had no money. If you're one of those, don't feel pressure. Just don't. Put a pizza in the oven. Allow yourself to just go, I'm going to watch box sets with my family or by myself, and I'm just going to let myself be free of having to conform to this idea. Secondly, listen, I cannot tell you how much it's important to get outside. I talk about collateral beauty constantly, even in pain. When my dad died last year, I remember thinking, how do I manage this unbelievable pain? And I would go outside and I would sit and I would look in the trees and I'd watch this magic of birds flying and the trees whistling and the breeze, all of this. And even though it didn't take away the agony, it reminded me that there is this wonder everywhere. And I know that might sound trite, but I promise you, when you bring it back to that micro level of what can I do with my body in this moment that can help me manage. And so I would do that as well. Get yourself out as much as you can. That's the irony, actually. One of the things that we know with coronavirus, most of us have a lack of vitamin D, and you're much more likely to be really ill unless you get vitamin D, but we're not being told to go outside loads. But just as a hint there, get yourself outside. Also, honestly, if you can Zoom people, I wish I'd taken shares out. I don't have any money to do that.
Oh, me
but I wish
too.
I'd put 50p in, because I'm sure if I put 50p in, I'd probably be a millionaire. Right, but cook together, play, have fun together, do Cards of Humanity together. It doesn't matter, connect. And you know what else? I promise you now, online, whether it's Age UK or other organisations or Facebook meetups, there will be groups of people now putting online things where they're going to share their Christmas day together. So reach out. And I today realised when I went online and I put that thing on about my mental health, I got so much negativity, and I realised that I just assumed that when you reach out online, people are nice. So what I'd say is find your tribe.
Yeah.
Go and find people online who are either funny, follow you, for example, you're always lovely. Get involved with people and have that conversation, and don't be afraid to say on Facebook or on Twitter or on Insta, I'm alone this Christmas. Can somebody involve me in theirs? Because I guarantee you'll have people say yes. You'll have people be horrible, but you'll have a lot of people say yes. Don't feel stuck. And of course, the stalwarts, eat something good for yourself, Move around, activity's important. Meditate, there's loads of free stuff on YouTube. Watch a really nice box set if you can. Don't feel any pressure, and just know that people like you and me, we get it, and we're there for people, and we always will be, and we're fighting the corner. So also know that you're not alone. You're really not alone.
Emma, my darling, you are a beacon of light as always. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me
wisdom.
as ever.
Love it. The fabulous Emma Kenny there, just giving us some little tips and tricks for if you are feeling a bit like you've been kind of knocked around the head by today's announcement, or actually as though the tether that you were hanging on to has now snapped. I know that feeling. But we're here and we want to talk to you about it. Come and talk to me. If you're feeling lonely, if you are worried about being alone this Christmas, please come and talk to me now. Let's chat it out, because you are not alone. You always have us here on Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.
Listen up. You don't want to compromise on quality when it comes to your skin. It deserves respect. Now I know what you're thinking. That's going to cost the earth. But don't worry, it doesn't have to. That's where Bulldog Skincare comes up trumps. They make straightforward products that don't compromise on quality. All their products are developed using quality natural ingredients and are mixed up by some skincare boffins who know what's what. Be loyal to your skin. Check out the website at bulldogskincare.com.
Come in, Ether. This is Barbo Observatory. Are you receiving this? Is anyone out there?
This is Ether. Does anyone copy?
The Midnight Sky, starring George Clooney and Felicity Jones. Rated PG-13. Only on Netflix December 23rd.
We're facing the biggest health challenge of our generation. And we've shown that together we're stronger than ever. But to keep making a difference, we need to support each other. If you're a man and you've had coronavirus recently, then you might just have the antibodies to help save lives in your blood plasma. That's why we urgently need men to donate. Giving blood plasma is safe and easy. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today.
Rockstar Games presents the biggest and most action-packed update to Grand Theft Auto Online yet. The Cayo Perico Heist. Infiltrate the remote tropical island of Cayo Perico in an all-new adventure for 1 to 4 players, featuring an array of exciting new vehicles and weapons, a brand new nightclub with world-class DJs, new radio stations, and much more. Access to the Cayo Perico Heist is free with every copy of Grand Theft Auto 5. Play now on PlayStation 4 and via backward compatibility on PlayStation 5. Rated PEGI 18.
Talk Radio. Traffic and travel.
Problems continue on the M25 in London this evening, where the clockwise carriageway remains closed at junction 28 for the A12. That's following a serious accident involving 3 cars. There are queues halfway back to the M11 at junction 27. It's taking 40 minutes to get through currently. And in West Sussex, the A27 is closed heading out of Chichester. That's westbound from the Fishbourne roundabout along to the Emsworth junction following an accident. And in Kent on the A2 at Dover, that's closed coastbound from the Whitfield roundabout along to the Deal roundabout for traffic management. I'm Johnny Ratner.
Being stuck at home doesn't mean you can't be part of something bigger.
Hi, I'm here to install your smart meter.
Every week, thousands of smart meters are being installed with COVID safety measures. They're helping millions of us keep track of our energy. So even though we're not all together right now,
all done.
You can join the quiet revolution. Ask your energy supplier for a smart meter. Eligibility may vary.
Badass XL on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Badass Women's Hour XL here on Talk Radio with me, Harriet Minter. We are talking, obviously, about today's Tier 4 announcements. How are you feeling about it? I don't know about you, but I wasn't thrilled. And I'm feeling a little bit knocked sideways about it. But if it is what it is, how are we going to get through? I'd love to hear your thoughts. How are you going to get past this? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Come and tell me how you are going to cope with Tier 4. On the line with me now is Ben from Buckinghamshire. Hi, Ben.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Tell me, what do you think about Boris's handling of this so far?
Well, firstly, it's my first time listening to Talk Radio, and it's really interesting to hear people's opinions. My opinion is I don't think people, not everyone, but certainly a majority are kind of taking what Boris is saying and taking the advice that the scientists have been giving him seriously enough. Kind of like you mentioned earlier on in your show, Harriet, I think if people had played their part and kind of done as they were instructed to do earlier on, we might be in a completely different situation to where we are now.
Do you think then that actually, because I sort of go back and forth this and I don't know, and I feel like we don't have the stats to know whether, I feel like as a nation we really have tried, haven't we? We've tried, we tried to lock down properly, we've tried to socially distance, we're all wearing masks, but we're still in this position. Do you think it's that we, as people, as the population of this country, that we haven't tried hard enough, or do you think it's that the government hasn't been tough enough, or that we weren't in lockdown for long enough? What do you think is responsible?
I mean, I think the government have done what they can with the information that they've been given. I mean, I can't really criticise them because I'm not in their shoes, and I never will be. I think.
Have you found lockdown, Ben? Have you been able to comply with it, or have you found it difficult?
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't difficult. I think for a majority of it, I've been complying with it where possible. It's certainly difficult, and I think the latest announcement that kind of Christmas has been restricted further. I'm not going to say cancelled, because I don't think it's been cancelled, but I think the kind of most recent announcement is certainly a bit depressing, and I think, as Emma was saying previous to me, I think there is going to be an impact on mental health, and I'm a young bloke, I'll get through it, but I think my concern is with elderly relatives and those who don't have anyone to speak to this Christmas, really.
How will you be managing it?
I think for me, I would definitely be following what Boris has said. It really hit home for me what they said earlier, in that I would rather have this now and have the prospect of seeing my grandparents and elderly relatives in the future. And I wouldn't want to think that anything I did could impact on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is I think this will be how a lot of people are feeling, actually, Ben, which is, that sort of slight fear that even if we're completely fine and we've been socially distancing and we feel fine and there's no temperatures or anything like that, this slight feel that somehow we might still pass it on and we might still be responsible. I wonder how long it's going to take us to actually even get over that feeling. Whether we ever really will be able to.
I agree. It's going to be difficult to get over that. And I think even when the government say, we've all been vaccinated and everything's okay again, I think there will still be that thought in the back of my mind, definitely, that I still want to play it safe. Am I going to hug people as openly as I may have done before going forward? I don't know.
Yeah. Ben, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for calling in. It's Ben from Buckinghamshire there saying, actually, we kind of just have to get on with it, and you don't want to risk seeing our grandmother now, for example, and then not being able to see them next year. I'd love to hear what you think about that. Are there people in your life that you worry perhaps if you don't see them this year, actually they're at a stage of their life where they might not be with you next year anyway, so you want to make the most of it? Would you risk it? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. I've got Anthony on the line now. Hi, Anthony.
Good evening, Harry. Well, I would certainly risk it. Life's for living. Life's for living. The elderly could take their own view, obviously, depending upon their vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about recovery rates. Tonight.
Okay, tell me about recovery rates.
I'm encouraged, I must say, by the number of callers that are thinking critically about what they're being told, and are threatening now these really draconian measures to contain a virus which I don't think anybody's ever done before.
I mean, so do you think that it's gone too far then?
If I just finish, sorry, with a 99.7% average recovery rate. Okay, if you're over 70, it goes down to 94.6%. Okay. Now, a pandemic, by nature, must surely involve death. This is the definition of a pandemic, I would think. And if we look at excess deaths and overall deaths for 3 countries I've looked at for the last 3 years, we see there is no pandemic. There is no excess death.
I mean, there are excess deaths. I think it's roughly 50,000 excess deaths in the UK. Yeah.
Okay. In Canada, 26.
С одной стороны, вы играете Рамазовых, и играете...
Боссер, сейчас эта фотография будет отправлена по адресу. Я напомню, что сегодняшний выпуск авторской песни...
Taking the steering wheel out of someone's hand. Once we saw that car on the news, we both knew that was exactly the car we had seen coming out of Mosaic.
Available now on Apple Podcasts.
Fox News Radio. On air, online, on demand. The latest news, your favorite talk show hosts, the hottest podcasts. All in one place. America is listening to Fox News.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. With Congress trying to agree on a COVID stimulus bill, one of the last obstacles involves the Federal Reserve. Pennsylvania Republican Senator Pat Toomey is leading a controversial effort to prevent the Fed from reusing programs it employed earlier this year.
They did their job. They functioned. They restored the private credit markets. And so they don't need to continue.
Democrats say he's trying to tie the hands of President-elect Biden when it comes to economic relief. Speaking of the next president, he's introducing the members of his environmental team.
They're qualified, tested, and they are barrier busting.
The nominees include New Mexico Democratic Congressperson Deb Haaland. If confirmed, she would be the first Native American to serve as Secretary of the Interior. America is listening. Fox News.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
Volunteers working hard to help bring Christmas to kids across the country make today's Dean's List. Marine Corps Sergeant Austin Buatha is from Minnesota and is helping raise money and awareness for the charity Toys for Tots. The amount of people coming to donate toys during this first week is lower than previous years. Sergeant Buatha says last year, the first week, they filled up 2 semi-trucks. This year, not even half a semi-truck is filled. The organization is not only seeing fewer numbers of donations, but also fewer volunteers. With the pandemic, some people are reluctant to go out and volunteer around other people. This year, Sergeant Buatha hopes that people will spread the holiday spirit by donating toys online or just time to those in need. If you would like to make a donation to Toys for Tots around the country, you can go to toysfortots.org or find out ways to deliver a gift in your area to a deserving child this year. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Now, from the historical audio archives of Fox News Talk.
In January of 1960, John F. Kennedy announced that he would seek the presidency of the United States, which he won on November 8, 1960, in a narrow victory over Richard Nixon. At 43, he became the youngest U.S. president.
In the past 40 months, I have toured every state in the Union, and I have talked to Democrats in all walks of life. My candidacy is therefore based on the conviction that I can win both the nomination and the election. I believe that the Democratic Party has a historic function to perform in the winning of the 1960 election, comparable to the 1932 election. I intend to do my utmost to see that that victory is won.
Stay tuned to hear more history as it unfolds before your ears. It's the audio archives of Fox News Talk.
I'm Ashley DeBorkin with a Fox Celebrity Profile with actor Steven Dorff of the new MMA drama Embattled. Dorff plays a world champion fighter with an abusive past. His son looks to break that cycle, and the two eventually square off in the ring. For Dorff's MMA side, they took a cue from Conor McGregor.
His sense of humor, his over-the-top personality, and then his raw talent. And taking all that and then stripping off the Irish and all the stuff that Conor is, because I'm not playing Conor McGregor.
Dorff says it was a tough character to take on, but easy to let go of.
I kept thinking of what De Niro must have felt like when he went and played Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. You know, this is not a nice person, you know, that he was playing. It's challenging and it's hard every day to do that.
While Dorff has dabbled in MMA, his training was to make the scenes as realistic as possible.
I gotta say, I mean, I've never been involved in a choreography situation where the fighting was really what the script was. You know, it wasn't about how do we make this round exciting and he gets one in and I get one in. It was much more storytelling throughout the fighting, which I thought was very unique.
Ashley DeBorkin, Fox News.
Deck the White House halls.
I'm Casey McDonald, and today we're finding out what makes 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue so American.
Celebrate the season at America's most famous address and see the traditions of the first families.
If you get the chance to go see those decorations, you really have to do it. It makes you remember what's great about America.
It's a White House Christmas coming December 21st. Save 35% when you use code 35OFF. Plus, select plans include a free copy of Pete's new book and an exclusive Fox Nation Christmas tree decoration.
Publisher, because from the very start I was sort of encouraged or told really from my very first book that I should set things in the UK or that they would be unsellable.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's a long time ago now. I've been writing for a good 10 years or so, but back then, yeah, very much. And even 10 years ago it was London rather than Glasgow, please, you know, so I sort of stuck with Glasgow for about, you know, all of my books really, and The Cry was the only time where I did that little, where I had that setting that really mattered to me, and I realised that I'd also not been home for a long, long time. My dad died about 7 years ago, and I'm thinking about where I came from a lot more, and I just wanted to revisit it. I felt like I have never said goodbye to it.
Oh, I hope you never have to say goodbye and that you continue to water those roots.
Yeah, me too.
Ash Mountain follows Fran and her local community just before their town is suddenly engulfed by fire. Would you, Helen, read the passage for us when Fran realises the fire's headed for them?
I will. 000, said a woman. What's your emergency? There's a firestorm coming straight for Ash Mountain, said Fran, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. It's above McBean's Hill. There are embers. It's coming fast. No one knows here. There is nothing online. We need help. She couldn't hear what the woman was saying. Nothing useful. Somehow, she was still running, and she only winced a little when 3 kangaroos overtook her. Embers... Thank goodness, her dad answered this time. It's bad and close, she said.
So, Helen, you wrote the book before the huge fires devastated so much of Australia last year. But why did you want to include this firestorm in the novel?
I was actually responding more to the 2009 fires, Black Saturday, which killed 183 people in Victoria. And I was actually over there at the time visiting Mum and Dad. And the fire started in a little town called Kilmore, which is an hour and a half or an hour from Melbourne, and that's where I grew up. And it was a one-day event, really, that the towns had absolutely no warning because of the wind changes that just went against them at the very last minute. So I'd always wanted to write, not necessarily about fire, but I've always been interested in disaster. I feel like that, you know, as we are experiencing now, they're happening more and more. And I guess I wanted to write about victims of these events because I think when that big disaster was happening in Australia, you have about 2 or 3 days empathy when you're seeing people on the news, and then it goes and you forget exactly what people have gone through and the devastation and loss that they're left with.
Helen, you used to work in child protection and with sex offenders, and I know that you've described it as a very hard job. How much of that career and those experiences do you bring into your novels?
A lot. Nothing obviously about particular cases, but I mean, my last book, Worst Case Scenario, I looked at that job quite...
People living in these areas must stay at home with limited exceptions, and non-essential shops and other businesses have to close. In Scotland, travel to and from the rest of the UK will be banned over the festive period. The country's toughest Tier 4 restrictions will be in force across the mainland from Boxing Day. While the Welsh Government has ordered a national lockdown from the 26th, the First Minister Mark Drakeford said he was bringing forward the restrictions by several days, saying the risk posed by the new variant was incredibly serious. Sport now, and Arsenal suffered their 8th Premier League defeat of the season at Everton, who won 2-1 to move up to second in the table. So while Carlo Ancelotti will celebrate a year in charge, Mikel Arteta can only reflect on the familiar failings that keep them down in 15th.
The things that we had to do a little bit better, we did, and we scored an own goal. On a set piece, yeah, they are really good at that, but we conceded again on that, and then when we had our moments, it's down to us to put it right.
No such problems for Liverpool, who hit Crystal Palace for 7 without reply at Selhurst Park. Jurgen Klopp dropped Mo Salah to the Premier League's first ever 9-man bench. He came on in place of Sadio Mane and scored twice.
Not that Mo organised a party when I told him he will not start. Boys accept him, it's not a problem, but of course in that moment that he looks at the clock and it's 51 minutes. I was happy that we could do it so early. He not, obviously, but he's completely fine, and that's normal.
So Liverpool 6 points clear at the top. Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola says the important thing is to forget about the Premier League and just go game by game. They're up to 6th after winning 1-0 at Southampton. Raheem Sterling got the only goal.
It was a tough game. They've been doing really well in recent weeks. We've come off the back of a couple of difficult results, but you know, the message today was go out there and show passion, show aggressiveness, and I thought we've done that.
Newcastle against Fulham is the last game of the day, being watched by Alistair Yeomans.
Approaching half-time, Shabnan, it's 0-0, but I must say Fulham have had the best chances. Nanguisa cross from the left, Lookman's header was saved by Darlow in the Newcastle goal, and just a moment ago, Lamina, lovely crossfield pass, Decordova-Reid volleyed just wide. It's Newcastle 0, Fulham 0.
Alistair, thank you. Rangers are 16 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. They came from behind to beat Motherwell 3-1, while Ross County manager Stuart Kettlewell was sacked after their 2-0 defeat to Hamilton. Tomorrow's Women's Super League derby between Chelsea and Tottenham has been postponed because of coronavirus cases in the Chelsea squad, while the champions have been drawn against Manchester City in the quarter-finals of the Continental Tires League Cup in January. Leinster recorded their second straight bonus point win in Rugby Union's Champions Cup with a 35-19 victory over Northampton Saints in Pool 1, while in Pool 2 Gloucester beat Ulster 38-34 to improve their chances of progressing. There's live boxing for you in the early hours of the morning here on 5 Live as Liverpool's Callum Smith takes on Saul Canelo Alvarez in Texas. Smith is a world champion but will be underdog as he prepares to face boxing's best paid star. His trainer is Joe Gallagher.
In my opinion, a lot of people, Canelo is the pound-for-pound number one in the world. You just got to look at his resume of fighters, who he's fought, and the weight divisions he's gone through. But Callum, when he won the world title against George Groves, his goal was always to fight the best in the world, and that's Canelo, and we're usually confident we can beat him. I've got the right fighter to beat him, we've got the good skill set, and we know what Canelo brings, but we're extremely confident.
And we'll have commentary on 5 Live from around 4 a.m. That's your latest from BBC Sport.
This is BBC 5 Live, available on the BBC Sounds app.
With Chris Warburton.
Good evening. If you're just joining us, thanks for being with us on 5 Live. It's gone 20 minutes to 9 on this Saturday evening. It's Chris Warburton in for Stephen Nolan. We're going to speak to Chris Smith again, the virologist, in just a moment, and also to Simon Calder, the Independent's travel editor, of course. Let's just have a very quick word, though, around some of the health implications of all of this with our health correspondent, Catherine Da Costa. Hello, Catherine.
Hello.
Hi. Well, what did you take from that press conference? The main thing that really stuck out at you?
Well, just how quickly this variant is spreading. We heard tonight out of lockdown in early December, cases were rising rapidly in the capital, the southeast and east of England, and experts didn't really know why. But if you take London, they said cases had doubled in a week, and at first they didn't know whether it was just because they were high.
On the other hand, the private eye is essentially there to fill a role, a healing role.
Increase the power of government, increase the power of the judiciary,
There's a lot more you could say, but Loeffler and Perdue are make sure that the Senate, a Republican Senate, is a firewall against all of these far-out agenda of progressives, and that really scares me.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm with you all the way. If you're just joining us, the great Chuck Grassley is on the line. My question for you then would be, do you know anybody in in Georgia? Because I don't know anybody in Georgia. I have 2 friends that are drunk at a Waffle House right now, but that's about it.
Well, I do, and I'm going to urge them to vote for Loeffler and Perdue. And I hope all of your listeners, wherever they are in the United States, if you got friends in Georgia, tell them that Perdue and Loeffler and the Republican Senate 52 to 48 keeps Schumer from being majority leader and keeps the progressive agenda from getting adopted, and it's a firewall against all of this socialism.
Well, yes, we are going to 100% keep carrying that message forward. One quick question about coronavirus relief. I did hear from Senator McConnell that we are at the 1-yard line. Now, as someone who watches the New York Jets, they don't normally get in from the 1-yard line. Can we do better than the Jets on this?
Well, I think in the next 72 hours we're going to have a bill and we'll adjourn for the rest of the year.
Okay, well, that would make everybody happy. It'd be a nice present to put under the Christmas tree. Although I was going to ask you this. Do you believe long-term that the best form of relief we could give to small businesses is to actually reopen them?
You're hearing that all over the country, particularly from restaurant operators, restaurateurs. They're being killed, and all.
Президент Казахстана и позвали оставшихся в живых узников, в том числе Азарь Михайлович. Ехал, и Назарбаев к нему пришел и говорит: да, Азарь Михайлович, я знаю, что вы тут сидели.
Blood plasma is safe and easy. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today.
Talk Radio. Traffic and travel.
On the M1 in South Yorkshire, a breakdown is blocking off the inside lane northbound from junction 35 to 35A between Rotherham and Stocksbridge, causing queues. And then in London, the clockwise M25 remains shut, and junction 28 for the A12. That was following a serious accident involving 3 cars. It's taking half an hour and 4 miles of queues halfway back to the M11 at junction 27. And in Kent, the A2 at Dover stays shut coastbound from the Whitfield roundabout along to the Deal roundabout because of the sheer weight of traffic heading to the port. I'm Johnny Ratner.
Being stuck at home doesn't mean you can't be part of something bigger.
Hi, I'm here to install your smart meter.
Every week, thousands of smart meters are being installed with COVID safety measures. They're helping millions of us keep track of our energy. So even though we're not all together right now, you can join the quiet revolution. Ask your energy supplier for a smart meter. Eligibility may vary.
Badass XL on Talk Radio. On Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Badass Women's Hour XL here on Talk Radio with me, Harriet Minter. We're taking your calls on, Tier 4, cancelling Christmas, Boris Johnson. I want to know how you are feeling about it. Are you worried that you're going to be alone this Christmas? Are you furious that you've had to cancel your plans? Have you ordered a load of food and now you're thinking about the money you've spent, which actually is probably going to go to waste? I'd love to know how this is impacting you. Do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Come and talk to me here on Talk Radio. Next on the line we've got Chris. Hi Chris, how you doing? Oh, have we got Chris?
Yeah, great.
Oh, we do. There you are. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I've been better, but not bad. I'm not. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much sums it up for me too. I have been better, but we're not at the bottom of the barrel yet, so it's all good. How are you feeling about today's announcement regarding Christmas?
Well, I kind of expected him to do a U-turn, but I just think you were talking about the excess deaths from COVID, but I think we need to talk more about the excess deaths from lockdowns. There seems to be this presumption that they work. But we've seen, I think, 5,000 extra heart disease deaths since March. People dying at home from non-COVID, cancer deaths, and the early diagnosis is missed that I think are going to have a backlog for years.
And do you think that's because of lockdown rather than because of COVID?
Yeah, they're government policies. It's not COVID doing this. We've seen other countries across the world. Everyone talks about Sweden, but there's others. There's Belarus, Japan, states in the US. Florida's been open since September. There are other ways of doing this. And I've always said to protect the vulnerable, and I can't see why all of our resources and money goes into protecting them with mass testing and using both the PCR test and the rapid testing to make sure we get the right results, at least in a temperature test. But, I think the government is a disgrace, to be honest, and they keep talking about saving lives, but there's no evidence that lockdowns save lives. And the lockdowns are destroying the economy, which is going to have an effect on the NHS as well anyway in the future. And I just can't believe anyone thinks the stories care about the NHS. It's pretty ridiculous. And it's like, I just think the damage we're doing is just beyond repair, and is so sad. And look, the all-cause mortality is normal levels. Hospitals are quieter than they were this time last year. I just think that we've got to change strategy, and I don't know. I feel like I'm saying it to them blue in the face, but some people don't listen, and the government.
Why would you? Because I hear what you're saying, and I guess I would say, on the other side, which is, we have seen. I think you're totally right. I think lockdown has caused definitely, really big problems. So definitely high levels of suicide. We've seen high levels of domestic violence. We know that people are not going to their doctor when they should be. So all of those things are happening. But we also know that when the country locks down, the COVID infection rate falls, which means admissions to hospital of COVID fall, which means that actually, so there is now more space in hospitals, so they can deal with the stuff that usually happens at this year, so kind of the flu, the heart attacks, all those sort of things. So it sort of feels like, yes, on the one hand, it feels like a very uncomfortable, unfortunately, balancing act. I don't know how we get that right.
Well, I mean, take the second lockdown. The infection rates were already falling before the lockdown, and people like Professor Carl Hennigan sort of debunked the data they were using because it was out of date, within hours. So I don't think there's proof lockdowns work, and it's
What would you like to see happen instead, Chris?
Just protect people who are most vulnerable to the disease. And I've seen pieces where 80% of hospital admissions, they have a vitamin D deficiency, and the government, I've read in Hertfordshire Live piece, that they're going to roll out, and even Matt Hancock agrees with it, in January. So I've known that vitamin D was a problem since the beginning. Surely they must have known this. Yeah. And I think we should be focusing more, as well as protecting people, but trying to work on our immune systems and stuff like that. Trying to build up that protection, which we know it causes a problem. Of course, the winter is the worst time for a virus, so we've got to be extra careful. But I just think it's so insanely over top that we're doing more damage than helping people and saving people, that it just doesn't.
How have you been coping with lockdown? What is the impact of the 2 lockdowns, of this tier system? What's been the impact of that on you?
Well, mainly the mental stress of it. I've been against it from the beginning, and I've changed some people's minds, but some people just won't. Having arguments. I've lost friends over it. My dad, he was 87, but he died from lockdown basically in June. He missed a kidney appointment, and they wouldn't have him in hospital, and he died at home. So I know how it feels, and thanks. And other people I've heard, I've heard about suicides from my brother, his friend, and people who've missed cancer operations or treatment and they've died. So it's a frustration, and the mental side is I can see what's happening isn't working, and I don't know what to, I've written to my local MPs and they just don't listen. But then I've written to other ones like Charles Walker and they send a lovely reply back. So it's like, I feel like you're talking to a brick wall sometimes. There's no, they're not focusing on all the other health issues. They've just got this crazy obsession with COVID. And I think it's having terrible effect. I can't put it into words anymore. I'm sure you can understand. I don't know what to say anymore.
No, I
hope. I'm not telling people to break the rules, but I think people are saying, Christmas is only one day, but I do think it's important and it's a nice time to spend with your family. It might be the last time you ever spend with your family. But if someone's got symptoms, then surely you can, get a miss or whatever. But we've got to be sensible. We can't be hysterical.
How are you feeling about Christmas then?
Well, it was going to be a small gathering anyway. I think it should be up to the person. My nan was going to come around, but she's got other problems as well. But I just think people should decide if they want to take the risk. Obviously, if they've feel like they might have some kind of symptoms, they can. But I just don't think the government has the right to tell people what to do at Christmas or any time. I think we're grown-ups. We should be given the information, not lied to and exaggerations, that we know what COVID is now. And if people do feel vulnerable or they've got health conditions then I totally understand protection. But I just think we should make our own decisions. I think we are grown-ups and we can do it. I think people underestimate us a bit. We're not all morons, kind of that aren't capable of being somewhat sensible. I think people have been pretty good, but we can only take so much. People, it can't keep going on like this. It turned from 3 weeks to flatten the curve to cancelling Christmas, and I just feel like there should be a bit more pushback, really.
How are you going to feel if this continues on into January?
Well, I know it's going to, so I'm not going to be surprised. I know it's going to probably carry on till April if they extended the furlough scheme till April. And that's another thing. People say about public support, like, if they ended the furlough scheme tomorrow, I think within a week or two, the public would be against it. They're not being supported, are they? But we're going to have to pay for this anyway in the future. The economy is going to. Seems like there's going to be a crash in the future, and we're going to have to pay for it when Rishi Sunak comes out with an emergency budget. So, we're not. They keep talking about the government like that's their money. It's not really. A lot of people are going to have to pay for it, and so maybe just people should think about that a bit more.
Chris, my final question for you: why do you think the government is doing this? Because it's not to their advantage, is it?
Not really, but I think the pharmaceutical industry is very powerful, like the military sort of. There's a lot of pressure coming from lobbyists, but also there's a fear factor there, and they've surrounded themselves with scientists that are all saying the same thing in the SAGE and the Behavioural Insights team. I just think they should be listening to people more like Sunetra Gupta from Cole Hennigan.
Is something we can all relate to, right? This has become another issue that we are we need to hold some space for people to disagree with each other. Right. I had Emma Kenny on earlier, and she said every time she goes on social media and says she's worried about how people are coping with lockdown, she has hundreds of people attacking her, saying she's personally killing their granny. No, it's not true. We're just asking the questions. We're just saying, how are people coping right now? How are you coping right now? How is this for you? How are you feeling about Tier 4? How are you feeling about the idea that there might be a Tier 5 or a Tier 6? Because, hey, if we can go to Tier 4, anything can happen. And most importantly, how are you feeling about Christmas? Are you relieved that actually you don't have to go and spend it with relatives when you're not really sure they're following all the rules anyway, and you think you might be a bit infectious? Or are you going to miss people? As we can see them next.
С нами, и я думаю, что прекрасная идея насчет слета Воложанчик, она будет осуществлена. Спасибо большое всем. Через неделю встречаемся на «Эхо Москвы» в авторской песне в лицах. Всего доброго. До встречи.
День в день. Час в час. Минута в минуту. «Эхо Москвы».
Опять в Одноклассниках сидишь, фотки лайкаешь?
Да, я новости читаю.
Какие еще новости? Новости, они на Эхе.
Правильно, а еще в Одноклассниках, на официальной странице «Эхо Москвы».
Да ну?
Ну да, а еще там блоги, голосования, самые интересные материалы с эховского сайта. И, кстати, фотки там тоже есть, можешь лайкать.
Все, присоединяюсь.
Радио «Эхо Москвы».
В Москве полночь. В студии Александр Климов. Информационная программа «Эхо». В Белоруссии сегодня состоится традиционный воскресный марш противников режима Лукашенко. В Москве с сегодняшнего дня будет расширен список категорий граждан, которые могут вакцинироваться от коронавируса. В столице начинают работать елочные базары.
Вы слушаете информационную программу «Эхо».
В городах Беларуси сегодня состоится так называемый марш Народного трибунала. Эту акцию лидер оппозиции Светлана Тихановская объявила еще в середине ноября. А в чем ее суть, расскажет Мария Китаева.
Марш Народного трибунала – это требование законного суда над преступниками. Так акцию анонсируют в соцсетях. Ее объявила Светлана Тихановская, сказав, что 20 декабря, сегодня, в стране состоится самый массовый марш с заявлением народного обвинения. Речь идет о результатах работы платформы «Единая книга регистрации преступлений». Сайт был запущен в начале декабря. Цель – собрать заявления о противоправных действиях властей с доказательствами, которые потом можно использовать в суде. Силовикам, которые сообщат о преступлениях коллег, Тихановская пообещала амнистию. Сегодня будет опубликован первый список обработанных заявлений, а по всей стране пройдут акции. В Минске ее собирались провести в центре. Напомню, что в последние недели участники протестов изменили формат. Чтобы уменьшить риски столкновений с силовиками, люди начали собираться прямо в своих дворах. В этот раз предлагалось вернуться к прежней стратегии выйти на акции в центре. Но в оппозиционных телеграм-каналах все же обсуждается проведение марша в децентрализованной форме.
На сегодняшний день на сайте «Единая книга регистрации преступлений» на проверке у юристов находится почти 400 заявлений.
Вы слушаете информационную программу «Эхо».
В Москве с сегодняшнего дня будет расширен список категорий граждан, которые могут сделать прививку от коронавируса. Мэр Москвы Сергей Собянин рассчитывает, что острая фаза пандемии коронавируса завершится в ближайшие несколько месяцев.
Я думаю, мы еще долго будем с ковидом бороться, но самый острый период через несколько месяцев должен закончиться. Самым сложным был даже не период, когда мы принимали решение о закрытии города. Самым сложным было принять решение о снятии этих ограничений. Потому что когда ты вводишь ограничения, ты как бы защищаешь население, а когда ты снимаешь ограничения, ты берешь на себя ответственность, что если завтра начнутся массовые заболевания, то ты теперь виноват.
Получить прививку от COVID-19 теперь смогут также работники транспорта, энергетики, промышленности и сотрудники СМИ. В Москве с сегодняшнего дня начинают работать елочные базары. В столице в разных частях города будут открыты более 200 точек продаж. С подробностями Константин Пахмелов.
В ассортименте
Отечественные ели из Пермского края, Саратовской и Тамбовской областей, а также импортные деревья из Дании. Помимо елок, горожане смогут приобрести пихту, сосну, лапник и даже саженцы хвойных деревьев для дачного участка, рассказали в пресс-службе Департамента торговли и услуг города Москвы. Там также отметили, что цена за букет из хвойных веток будет начинаться от 350 рублей. Средняя стоимость отечественной елки составит 900 рублей за метр, а вот датские красавицы обойдутся москвичам втрое дороже. Елочные базары будут работать в столице до конца года.
Также к Новому году на улицах и площадях Москвы установят более 250 елей с праздничной подсветкой. В Москве этой ночью -2, -4. Завтра днем от 1 до 3 градусов ниже нуля, местами небольшой снег. Александр Климов, служба информации «Эхо Москвы».
«Эхо Москвы». Свидетельство о регистрации СМИ ЛФС 77 48 736 Роскомнадзора.
«Эхо Москвы». Радио для тех, кому за 6. Вы старше 6 лет, и вы слушаете «Эхо Москвы».
Смотрите трансляцию этой программы на нашем канале YouTube и в Яндекс.Эфире.
Минут в Москве. Вас приветствует ночной эфир радиостанции «Эхо Москвы». Программа «Одна». Меня зовут Ольга Журавлева. Здравствуйте. Вместе со звукорежиссером Кириллом Бурсиным проведем с вами ближайшие 2 часа. Вы уже не путаетесь, да, так как я уже 2 недели вела по 2 программы. Одна программа часовая, другая 2-часовая. Так что сегодня вот это вот большая «Одна» у нас сегодня. Подключайтесь, разумеется, по всем возможным каналам. +7 985 970 45 45. Это номер для всех видов сообщений, будь то WhatsApp, Viber или SMS. Мне кто-то, кстати говоря, в личку написал на Фейсбуке, по какому номеру писать сообщение. Еще раз. 970 45 45. +7 985. Есть также чат в Ютьюбе, канал «Эхо Общества», если кто не в курсе. В Яндекс.Эфире у нас тоже, кстати, идет трансляция, но в тамошнем чате я, честно сказать, не участвую. Сегодня возникла тема у меня, связанная со слежкой и даже, я бы так сказала, с проверкой информации. Я написала, что меня так впечатлило расследование. На самом деле, далеко не первое расследование, которое меня действительно впечатляет. Если говорить серьезно, то, конечно, не этим оно впечатляет, не тем, какие есть способы узнать что-то о других людях, но мы можем, так сказать, в частную лавочку перевести некоторые вещи и поговорить, так сказать, о личном. Но меня тут часто критикуют, что «Эхо Москвы» не дает высказываться по острым политическим вопросам дорогим радиослушателям. Я даже подумала, что мы где-нибудь в следующем часе выделим 15 минут, 10 минут, в общем, такое специальное место, где вы позвоните и доложите нам обстановку, если вам прям вот так надо. Хотя, если кому-то очень хочется высказаться, это еще неизвестно, может быть, не все захотят выслушать что-то остро политическое, но попробовать можно. Сделаем такую будку гласности, если еще возникнут такие мысли, что вот я сейчас хочу о серьезном сказать, вот, о настоящем. Не знаю, кто по специальности люди, которые хотят что-то важное сказать, и хотят ли они, чтобы кто-то их услышал. Я не знаю, насколько хорошо они подготовлены, мы тоже не знаем. Но попробуем. Мало ли, вдруг у нас сейчас найдутся крупные политические обозреватели, серьезные специалисты, вирусологи, мощные экономисты, невероятные там какие-то, как бы это сказать...
России Владимир Путин на пресс-конференции в четверг опроверг причастность российских спецслужб к отравлению Навального. Цитирую: «Если бы они хотели это сделать, то...»
Если хотите делать приятное, не пишите ничего про то, как я выгляжу, как я похудела, потолстела или еще что-то со мной такое интересное произошло. Это совершенно не обязательно. Мне будет приятно, если мы будем с вами разговаривать только по делу. Дело вот какое я предлагаю, что касается расследований. Приходилось ли вам когда-то, не может быть, не самим даже проводить, либо участвовать, либо заказывать, либо самому проводить, либо быть объектом некого частного расследования? Когда мы читаем вот эти все многочисленные журналистские расследования, касающиеся не только преследования Навального сотрудниками спецслужб, что нам подтвердил президент, это все абсолютная правда, не только вот этого, но и других, касающихся финансов, родственных отношений, всяких там других вещей, возникают такие вещи, что вообще в мире существует, во всяком в России уж точно, существует огромное количество разнообразных баз. Если не очень сильно поднапрячься, как выясняется, в каком-то случае заплатить деньги, в каком-то случае просто знать места, то при помощи интернета, доброго слова и пистолета, и даже без пистолета, можно найти сведения, например, о том, как человек записан в чужих телефонных книжках. Почему нет? Допустим, в случае с расследованием Навального человек был записан такой-то ФСБ, а может быть, кто-то расследовал частную историю, и какой-то записан как муж. И тогда это открывало совершенно другие перспективы для отношений с этим человеком, потому что он, например, скрывал что-то в браке. И так далее. Сталкивались ли вы с какими-то вот такими историями? Кстати, тоже, когда писали про авиационные билеты, которые вроде как нельзя достать, но если очень хочется, то можно. И узнать, кто летел тем или иным рейсом. Пишут, что дескать, расследователи пишут о том, что иногда ревнивые мужья или кто-то еще устраивает такие расследования, покупает какой-то рейс, информацию о каком-то рейсе для того, чтобы узнать, с кем рядом летел нужный ему человек. Или не знаю, с кем он летел даже одним рейсом, туда-обратно, например. Так что для личной жизни это тоже важно. Иногда бывает кому-то. Мне очень интересно, были ли у вас такие случаи, слыхали ли вы о таком? Может быть, вы сами что-то подобное делаете? Не надо здесь признаваться в том, что вы нарушали какие-то правила и законы. Это совершенно не обязательно, но, так сказать, поговорить отстраненно вполне об этом можно. А один из наших постоянных слушателей написал в Фейсбуке, просто товарищ перший по Фейсбуку, написал, что его, как специалиста по связи, телевидению и всякому прочему, когда-то его пытались привлечь к организации прослушки частным образом. Он выяснил, что это не так сложно сделать, и специалистов найти не вопрос, но, правда, делать этого не стал. Не захотел он организовывать прослушку для чьей-то жены. Еще другие бывают истории. Сейчас, тем более, когда люди знакомятся онлайн, всевозможные приложения, там всякие Тиндеры и так далее, как-то пытаются узнать что-то о человеке, с которым собираются встретиться, например. Это просто даже из соображений безопасности. Как-то. Насколько много можно почерпнуть из соцсетей, например, из каких-то, не знаю, помоечных сайтов или еще чего-то, где можно найти какую-то информацию. Мне даже кажется, что здесь есть такие две стадии. Одно дело, когда люди пытаются что-то узнать о человеке, с которым они давно живут, или давно состоят в отношениях, не изменяет ли он им или что-то еще такое. А на мой взгляд, это довольно бессмысленно, потому что если в отношениях что-то разладилось, то выясняя, не выясняя, они все равно так или иначе придут к финалу. А если они не придут к финалу?
Пресс-конференции Путин, отвечая на вопрос.
Выясняются отношения не только между возлюбленными или супругами, наверное, выясняется какая-то информация, касающаяся вашего происхождения. Кто-то написал, по-моему, Анжела, если не ошибаюсь, написала о том, что она случайно узнала о собственном рождении какие-то сведения. Так что всякое случается в жизни. Наверное, да, люди ищут, скажем, бывших супругов с тем, чтобы узнать, когда появятся алименты, например, на детей. Еще что-то такое. В общем, частные расследования, касающиеся исключительно частной жизни. Так вот, очень часто люди, я так понимаю, пытаются что-то узнать либо о тех, с кем состоят в отношениях, либо уже о бывших, да, вдруг начинают что-то искать. А вот о будущих гораздо реже. Но это как раз самое разумное, по идее. Если отношения еще не начались, то хорошо бы знать какие-то базовые вещи. Когда происходит, например, трагедия какая-то, да, вот были там случаи с женщинами, которые уже в женской консультации при наступлении беременности вдруг выясняли, что у них совершенно непонятно, откуда взялся ВИЧ. Вот просто вот взялся. А потом выясняется, что муж, ну да, он знал об этом уже давно, еще до брака, но как-то постеснялся признаться. Вот такую информацию, конечно, хорошо бы иметь заранее. Я слыхала о такой истории, когда муж узнал о том, что у его жены эпилепсия, только когда увидел, как его сын почему-то бьется в судорогах. И только путем очень долгих, сложных, наводящих вопросов и расспросов жены и ее матери выяснилось, что, оказывается, это такой совет был докторский, что девочке для улучшения здоровья лучше родить ребеночка. И вот весь этот брак и вся эта история, это была чисто медицинская процедура. Но она не очень помогла, честно говоря. Вот такие тоже вещи как бы хорошо бы знать заранее. Вы пытаетесь их узнать? Пытались ли вы? Что в результате вышло? Какими путями, или, может быть, иногда случайно расследование происходит фактически против воли. Такое же, наверное, тоже может быть. Валентин пишет, что он чужую жизнь исследует при общении. Но вот при общении далеко не все сообщают, что у них есть ребенок от предыдущего брака, правда, он живет в Казани, или там где-то еще, что у них там есть какие-то проблемы с законом, которые могут, ну, как бы сказать, многое о нем сообщить. Ну и так далее. Вот многие вещи люди не сообщают. Я уж не говорю про брачных аферистов, которые как раз пользуются тем, что никто не знает, что у него есть еще несколько семей, и уже у предыдущих семей он там что-то пытается отжать, и возможно, что и у этой семьи тоже там какую-нибудь квартиру отжать попытается. Анна пишет, что одно время пыталась разобраться с историей брата, который потерял квартиру и деньги за квартиру, но концов не нашли, а версий было много. Да, не все, конечно, специалисты-расследователи, к сожалению, в этом тоже есть большая проблема. Хотел, да, расследовать историю, касающуюся родного села Покровка лет 80 лет назад, пишет нам Габдулбары Давлетгареев. Но там очень долгая история, и мне кажется, вы, Габдулбары, хотите еще немножко быть не только исследователем, но и писателем, потому что пишете вы очень художественный текст. Так, что еще? Да, вот история, совершенно изумительная история. Муж расследовал мою прошлую жизнь на стадии знакомства. Выяснил, что я проходила по уголовке по какому-то экономическому преступлению. Мне был вынесен пожизненный запрет на посещение Великобритании. А оказалось, что вот этот самый будущий муж, который исследовал, он нашел сведения о тезке. И на самом деле это все было неправда. Ну, неудачно вышло расследование. Хотя, наверное, интересно, что человек на заре отношений пытается что-то узнать о своей будущей супруге. Это, мне кажется, довольно полезно. Ольга пишет, что-то останавливает, какие-то нравственные барьеры, может быть, мнимые. Ну вот, согласна, Ольга, потому что я вообще, как сказать, я с незнакомыми людьми редко уже общаюсь, совсем незнакомыми и слишком тесно. Тесно я общаюсь с теми, кого я знаю много лет. Как так получилось? Но я понимаю, что когда вот в газетах появляется информация, что вот, значит, там мужчина убил свою падчерицу или там что-то ужасное с ней совершил, и выясняется, что он несколько раз уже сидел за подобные преступления, и как же женщина вот могла за него выйти замуж, что ж она заранее это не проверила? Как женщина могла проверить? Простая женщина, я не знаю, там, воспитательница детского сада, проверить прошлое своего мужа уголовного. Даже если она знала, что он сидел, он мог ей рассказать все, что угодно. Где она могла это сделать и как? Если вы, кстати, знаете, как это делать, Бога ради. Надо все-таки предъявлять справки друг другу до брака. Но в мое время было не принято. Аня, между прочим, да, вот насчет предъявления справок, это совсем не глупая вещь. Ну, хотя бы что-то, хоть как-то намекнуть или сообщить, что да, вот даже не до брака, а, простите меня, до первой интимной встречи. Руприхт пишет, я один раз на стационарном еще телефоне ни на